Our first team list Tuesday of the season. We're going to be talking rookies, we're going to be talking NRL fantasy, and we're going to be talking crazy selections by the Dogs here. Before we jump right in here to this sexy NRL website, Miles, mate, who have you got winning the preseason challenge?
Honestly, fresh off a grand final loss, I've got to back the Broncos. They're taking it very seriously, this preseason challenge. The team they've named against my Cowboys this week, I would not be surprised if they score 70 plus points, and that'll get them some nice bonus points for this preseason challenge where points are at a premium.
So is this more or less important than the Nines? Because I've got the Chooks winning it, and they were historically a team that would send Brad Fittler and a bunch of reserve graders to the Nines, but they're taking it serious. You look at that back line, it's legit, man. It's legit. Look, let's jump in though. Let's look at these team lists. Just a reminder: today we are sponsored by the Hills Cricket Academy, best place in Sydney for cricket. Even I could learn cricket if Nick Burgz is coaching me. Check out the link below. You can make social bookings there, or if you're someone who's looking to get better at cricket, they do have one-to-one coaching as well. So, yeah, check out THCA. But let's jump right in here. So, Miles, I'm going to throw it to you first. Have a look at this team and tell me, are there any rookies that you think are exciting for this one?
Yeah, as always on the Casual Athlete, I seem to be our resident rookie watcher. It's because I love seeing players get their shot, and I think with the Dogs, they've gone with a very experimental side. We're seeing maybe a bit of Blake Taff, but the one I'm really excited about is Jarrell Skelton for them. Played a couple of games last year, but he's still considered a rookie. He didn't feature in my rookies top 10 video this year, just because I don't think he'll get that spot in the first grade side come round one, but he is an absolute beast, and I know you're a big fan of him. Kind of a Greg Marzu type of winger. He's not exactly going to beat you in the air or with too much speed, but he's a bulldozer.
Yeah, man, Skelton's a freak. As soon as he nails down a first grade spot at some point, which he 100% will, he's a bit raw, but he's got all the talent in the world. So I'm watching him for fantasy. One guy here that's probably a rookie as well is Jamin Salmon in number 13, because that can't possibly be the number 6 that went from Penrith to the Dogs, right? Like Phil Gould and Cam Serraldo, they're not playing silly buggers with us and chucking Jamin Salmon into lock for this trial game. That I just refuse to believe that they're doing something that stupid.
I just think all of those Dogs forward positions are up for grabs, right? And they'll throw in anyone who looks like they could snatch it. I mean, Drew Hutchison's playing 7 in this game with Sexton on the bench.
Oh, give it
How
to
often has Drew
Sexton, like,
Hutchison been considered an elite 7 in the game? I know this is preseason, but you can't be serious with Hutcho playing 7.
look, Hutcho goes, man. He plays good footy, but yeah, Sexton's the future there. You got some interesting players in the back line as well. So if Bronson, like just switching my fantasy hat here, Bronson Xerri, if he kicks off this preseason, he could win a spot. That's kind of interesting. Blake Taff is the biggest trap in the world. He is just not a fantasy producer. And he goes to the Dogs, which is a tough situation. So I've got no interest in that. And Matty Burton, obviously, he's looking like he'll keep that half spot because there was some slanderous talk in the offseason about him being a center this year, making way for what, Hutchison and Sexton or Taff in the halves. Yeah, people say some crazy stuff about the Dogs. I mean, to be fair, some of their selections are pretty wild.
Mm. Yeah, I'd be surprised if it doesn't end up being Bronson Xerri and maybe Connor Tracy as the centers there for the Dogs. So I know. I just don't really see what they're trying to do here. Maybe trying to figure a few things out and who's going to nail down some spots. The only people I can see in the forward pack that are going to be guaranteed spots are Reed, Max King, and Jacob Preston. There's no way you can drop him after what he did last
A
year.
few guys in there, though, fighting for those middle forward spots. So Sam Hughes and Liam Knight, one of them will be interesting for fantasy. I think Liam Knight's a bit expensive, but Sam Hughes, keep an eye on him. If he plays well this weekend, he might win a spot. Jumping over to the Storm, look, I'll cover fantasy here first, then we can talk about the rookies that you love who aren't in the team.
Yeah.
But look, Ryan Pappenhausen, great to see him back for this early trial. Let's see how his form is. If he looks like his old self, he's locked into my team. We've got not too many fantasy relevant guys as we go down the list. I'm going to look through. Loiero being at lock is really good news because that means Sean Bloor is going to be that guy on the edge if they're already moving Loiero into the middle. So pretty confident about that. I mean, if we go down to the extended bench, yeah, not a lot of names there that are particularly jumping out at me. Who are the rookies here, though, Burgz?
For me, it's the two that are missing, as you said, that I spoke about in our top 10 video, Jack Howarth and Suafau Longo. Not heard too much in the way of injury for both of those guys. So I'm just wondering as to why they didn't get a spot in a complete 28-man side. I just think it would have been really good to see them get a couple of reps before the season starts, considering they may not be a part of the 17, and both of them are very exciting talents. So I'm a little bit disappointed on that front. But yeah, I guess we're going to have to wait and see what the Storm want to do moving forward. Really, the only kind of first grade caliber player is Ryan Pappenhausen, you would say.
Yeah, they're wooden
just
spoon
left it.
specials, mate. Wooden spoon
Yeah,
specials of the preseason challenge, which
yeah,
we don't get to see for the Storm much. Look, next
yeah.
game here, we got the Knights and the Sharks. But before we jump into that, I want to throw to you, Burgz. How does the preseason challenge work? Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, mate. Absolutely. So this year, it's really interesting in terms of what the points system's going to be. There's 12 points for a win. You get 6 points for a draw. You obviously get no points for a loss. But they're giving out bonus points for 5+ tries in one game, and basically 5+ line breaks and 10+ offloads in a game. So you get a point for each of those as well. So I think it'll be encouraging some attacking football. The most points any team can receive from one game is 15 points. Everyone's kind of clamoring for that 100 grand as well. So Manly got it last year. They look to take the preseason on pretty seriously again this year. So maybe Manly go back to back in the preseason challenge and take it from the Broncos. But yeah, I think it just encourages a bit more attacking football, and some teams might want to take it a little bit more seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing 10+ uploads there and thinking, all right, cool. We got Jermaine Hopgood at Parramatta, so that's ticked off just by him being there. Yeah, juicy, man. It's exciting. So let's throw the next game here: Knights and Sharks. Now, these teams are pretty interesting. There's a scattering of first graders in both teams, so this should be a more competitive game. We'll start with the Sharks here, and you've got the Knights here. I meant to say on the left, and you've got a few guys here. Look, Greg Marzo, I think he's locked in for a spot. Thomas Jenkins, for mine, is really interesting. He's obviously a rookie that you probably want to chat about as well, but he could win that spot on the edge there for the Knights. To me, he's not that interesting for fantasy. I just don't think there's a lot of upside there for him. But Miles, do you think he's going to be a guy that makes a dent in that spot?
Well, he's got to replace Dom Young. So it's really between him and Anari Tawala for that winger spot. I know Anari's played there a lot in the past, but never really cemented a first grade spot. Jenkins, I think any player that's coming up for Penrith that they let go, I'm always a bit worried about, because if they were any good, you'd think that they would maybe shift on the older player and bring in their younger, more junior players. If they thought that there was some potential there, I think with Tom Jenkins, he didn't really show that much to me in terms of, his finishing ability, whether it be his speed or his tackle breaking ability, his kick returns. I just thought, no offense to Tom, he was a little bit average whenever he played. I don't really want to knock on him too much because I haven't seen.
I get you. Compared to
No.
Brian Toe, compared to Taylor
Yeah.
May, it's a pretty hard cohort, right?
Yeah, they like a certain type of outside back too. So I just didn't think he fit that mold quite well enough to stay at Penrith. But gets a good chance here with the Knights. I do think the Knights minus Kalen Ponga have put out, a relatively first grade caliber side as well, minus their two centers in Best and Gagai. Obviously, those guys are going to get a bit of a, rest before the start of the season. But the Gamble Hastings combination, in terms of halves for this year, are they either viable options for you in a fantasy team?
No. I mean, look, you could make a case for Gamble. You could take that gamble, but you also can't forget about Jack Cogger. Look, Cogger could be a guy who sort of pushes in. He's been pretty good for fantasy. So if he gets that spot in first grade, he's a guy like Cogger. He's a guy I'm keeping out on an eye out for in draft leagues. But no, the Knights aren't that interesting to me for fantasy this year. Dylan Lucas is one who I'm keeping an eye on. If he gets that edge spot, he's pretty cheap. He could win that spot. The other side of the ball on the Sharks, there's a lot more interesting players there. So look, I'll leave Iro to you because I know you like to talk about him as a rookie every year. Who's going to break out? And every year he doesn't. But
I'm not talking about him this year. I'm over it. I'm like
you're doing it,
Iro.
mate. You're doing it. Look, Connor Tracy's gone, and that helps a couple of players here. Cade Dykes, obviously, he's a bit of a freak, really fast fullback. He gets a shot. I'll be watching him really closely to see how he goes. But Kale Iro, there's talk that he could potentially take Talakai's center spot. So I think that's interesting. Look, you're a Jets fan, right? So you're down at Jets games all the time. You're watching Kale Iro, and it was Morgan Harper last year tearing up. One of them might play first grade for Para, but do you think Iro is going to crack the Sharks team?
God, I hope so, because I've talked about it for 3+ years now, I reckon. I just think with the guy being a former New South Wales Cup Player of the Year, he's had not a lot of things go his way, Iro. So I really hope he gets that spot. The big plus for me is that Talakai is actually listed in the reserves for this game. So Iro's been put there in favour of him. I don't know whether we may not give Talakai too much game time, considering we're going to start him come round 1. But I really hope that Iro takes this opportunity with both hands and starts torching up either an Ari Tawala or Papalangi as well. So I'm keen to see maybe an Iro hat trick. That'd be good. And as you said, Kade Dykes.
Yeah. Do you think much of these halves or this hooker?
Atkinson, a little bit. Puru, no. The other one for me is Jaden Berrell. He's played for Newtown for quite a bit now. I actually think he's a very solid backup. And unfortunately, with Braden Brayley's
Blake
form,
Brayley,
Blake Brayley's form, he just hasn't been able to get anywhere near the team because he's also an 80-minute hooker.
Brayley's an Iron Man. Brayley's dead set Iron Man. Seriously, that guy, I don't know. He's not a big unit. He just is so durable.
Exactly.
He really took the leap last year as well. Like, he just looked a lot more mature, a lot more comfortable. He seemed to not be fatigued by his role anymore. So he was playing a lot more creatively, which is such an exciting leap to see for him. Look, in terms of the forward pack, I've always thought Hazleton looked like he had a bit going on. He's a big boy, so I don't think he's going to be relevant for fantasy, but I kind of like seeing a player like that trot out. Billy Burns goes across from the Dragons. I think that's a terrible career move for him because at the Dragons, he was basically a guaranteed starter, and he's gone to a club where you've got Nakora and Wilton, who are very good back rowers. So I don't know why he's done that. Maybe there's some money in it, something like that. And then the extended bench. Look, like you said, Talakai. I'm not seeing too much else that's exciting me in fantasy. I think we can slide on through with these.
The one guy I forgot to mention, just as you scrolled down there, for the Knights is actually Tom Cant. Really raced up a lot.
How did you miss him?
Yeah. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I did miss that. But if that lock position for the Knights is very interesting to me, and he is a lock. So whether he comes in and takes it potentially, I can't remember who their lock is at the moment because it's not really relevant to me.
The Knights,
Adam Elliott. Yeah, I mean, it could be.
Nah, he was good. Back end of last year, he was really good. I think
good, but not an 80-minute lock.
I mean,
Cant can come in and cement a position
because they lose Kurt Mann as well. That's interesting for him. Look, Casey Badger as well as a referee, our fellow Parramatta referee when we were 14, and she was one of the top refs there at the time. We were absolutely terrible, but that's good to see her kicking on as well. Look, next up, Chookies and Manly, and these are two teams that want to win the preseason challenge, although you couldn't tell it by looking at Manly's team. Look, we'll go to the Chooks first. I think this is really interesting. So there's a lot of talk around Joe Suaalii, whether he plays center or wing. Most of the talk is just me saying I hope he plays wing because he'll be good for fantasy if he's on the wing. No one else is talking about it happening because it's probably not going to happen. But if it does happen, right? If we come into this game and let's say Billy Smith balls out, right? You got Joey Manu on the extended bench. I think they might be forced to play Billy Smith. They've just re-signed him for 3 years. If he hits some cracking form this preseason, we could see Joe Suaalii on the wing, and the Chooks have a back three of James Tedesco, Joe Suaalii, and Dom Young, which is number one in the competition no one's even close to it.
Mm. Yeah, it's definitely something that you talked about in our video the other day. If they get those three going, then they're going to be pretty much unstoppable. And if barring injuries, they're going to be definitely up there in the top four for me if they make it. Yeah, I agree with you in saying that Suoli'i should just move back to the wing. I think he was electric when he was there. I think Dan Tupou, as you said the other day, again, just has had a very good career, but I think it may be time to, give him a year off. If Suoli'i
Wow.
is going to move on, he's not as explosive, I guess, as
He's a
Suoli'i.
first grade winger though. He's
He
he's
definitely is.
unlucky that Dom Young and Joe Suoli'i are there because they're
Yeah,
top 5 wingers, the two of them,
yeah.
right? It's completely unfair. Have you got your own any of the rookies in this Roosters team?
Because there is none at this point in time. Every single
Oh
guy
wow,
on the
yeah, we go
roster,
right down there.
yeah,
There's
every
nothing at
single
all.
guy you've at least heard of before or has played a fair few games of
What about
NRL.
this Angus Crichton fella? I'm sure he's the son of Gus Crichton, who we used to know.
Yeah,
He's off at the end of the year, so you get a really interesting lineup where you got Tupanua and that Butcher in the starting side. I think though Suo Wong, who's on the extended, I think he's pretty locked in for a starting role this year. So that sort of makes me think that maybe for them, they're thinking Tupanua and that Butcher battling for a role. Like Nat Butcher was good last year, but he's been a guy who's been fringe for a while now. The other one I'll be keeping an eye on is Terrell May for fantasy. So for Terrell May, great points per minute last year. If he gets decent minutes and looks good in the preseason, I think he could be the guy that everyone thinks Spencer Leniu is going to be for fantasy.
yeah.
And he'll be trading that pretty
I
early.
think as someone who had Nat Butcher last year, sorry to go back onto him for fantasy, was very good this year and was very good last year. Sorry, and I'm not looking at him this year because the opportunity is not there. With the Gus Crichton being out, Tupanua being out at the start of
Mm,
last year, hot topic, right? But this year,
yeah.
those two guys are sniffing around again, and it's just too risky for me.
Let's go to Manly now, man. So for the Manly backline, oh mate, look for fantasy. I need to say this again because it's a real PSA. Do not buy Tommy Talau for your fantasy team. He could be starting at fullback for the Storm and be free in fantasy, and you still shouldn't buy him for fantasy. Pretty good player in real life, like really explosive, big guy, but he just does not score fantasy points. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want anyone else DMing me and asking about Talau
Has he
because
let you down too many times, mate?
I started with him last year, and
I know,
he had multiple games where he scored like 0 in 80 minutes. So yeah, no, I'm scarred. Don't touch him. Looking at the rest of the team, Jackson Paulo being there, he sort of had a really quick rise and then really dropped off, which is it sucks for him. The halves, that's not going to be their halves. I don't think there's anything.
Wakeham was the fantasy goat last year. What are you talking about, mate? He torched the Cowboys down at Leichhardt.
He was pretty good that day, yeah. Hey, Ben Trebojevic, here's what I'm going to talk about actually, because you got Joshy Schuster in number 15, you got Ben Trebojevic in number 11. Now, Burbo scored 3 tries against South Sydney's reserve grade of their reserve grade side a couple of weeks ago. So that was a 68-6 win or something like that. So I'm not really reading into that too much. I think it's a 50-50 coin toss. Does Ben Trebojevic win this spot on form, or does Josh Schuster win it on being paid $800K? That's going to be the battle here. And they've invested heavily in Josh Schuster, so I think they need to give him the minutes at some point to try and build that match fitness. Whether he comes off the bench and plays sort of 50, 60 minutes off the bench, that actually might be a possibility as well, and that could trick a lot of fantasy coaches. But yeah, I think this is a bit of a mess here. I'm starting to think that he might not get that 80-minute role, which sort of tanks his fantasy value.
No, I don't like it, to tell you the truth, the Schuster thing. I just think that there's already too much noise about him preseason wise, and it just doesn't translate to the field. It really never has. For Schuster to take that next step, and we're consistently waiting now. It's a waiting game with Schuster. The two rookies that I'd like everyone to keep an eye on, though, for this Manly side. I know there's not a lot on the Roosters side, but for Manly, it's a pair of hookers, actually, in Gordon Chenkum Tung, who played a couple of games last year, and then Jamie Humphries as well. Very excited about that the young hooker pairing. Could be a bit of a glimpse into the future for them with, maybe Lachlan Croker not necessarily having a great year last year. Who knows? The downward trend could continue. And Carl Lawton for me isn't a hooker anymore. He's a back rower or lock. So I don't know
Yeah,
why they're putting him in hooker.
maybe he's just absorbing the first 20 minutes. Yeah, they probably all get a shot in this game. The other one that's noteworthy is Brad Parker is on the extended there as well. So I just think that they're looking at this and going, oh, probably Tolu, Cooler, and maybe Garrick are our starting centers this year. We could see. You don't think so? What do you think?
Big contract, Brad. He's going to step in there, mate, and take it down.
He's not bad. I just think he might be slid out of this team.
Anytime try scorer against Para, 100%.
Oh, he's guaranteed. Look, next up here, Parramatta, who are not going to win the preseason challenge. Now, here's what I'm going to throw to you. Have you seen a team with faster sounding names? You got Blaze,
Hayes.
you got Hayes, you got Dejan,
and Morgan.
Yeah, well, maybe not Morgan, but Saxon. Ethan's spelled with a Y. It's Ethan with a Y. You've got that. Look, I look at this team and I still think, all right, they're sort of warming into it. Morgan Harper gets a shot. There, it's not that fantasy relevant, but he might be fighting for a spot. Bailey Simonson, if there's nothing at center for fantasy this year, I actually think he's not the worst shout. And I'll tell you why. First half of last year, he was terrible for fantasy, but second half of last year, he kicked on. And this year, we get a fully fit Dylan Brown, a fully fit Sean Lane, and he sits inside Sevo there. Could score some cheap tries. That's all I'm saying, but it's not ideal. If we can get a cheapie, that'd be better. Do you like any of the rookies for Parramatta, Miles?
100% Blaze Longy and Ethan Sanders for me are guys to watch. If Clint Gutherson and Moses go down this year, these guys could be potentially thrown straight in. I know they may prefer Dejan Arce in the halves role. I'm not too sure how that'll go if he gets the halfback position, but they've got to put in Blaze at some point. He's been killing it, the junior levels of the game. And Ethan Sanders last year led the under-19s New South Wales team to a brilliant win, and he scored 2 tries in that Origin game as well. So, man, you got some nice young rookies coming through for once. Hopefully you can hold on to them because Paris tend to send their rookies elsewhere or their juniors elsewhere, and they tend to have good careers. But I really like the look of some of these Para rookies this year.
And we're keeping these ones. So for Blaze, is he a fullback that can play wing, or is he more of a fullback in the spine?
He's more of a fullback in the spine. He's more of a fullback 5'8", unfortunately.
Okay.
I don't know.
There are spots on the wing that he could have a shot at.
There are those outside center or those center wing spots a bit unknown.
Yeah, okay, that's hard for him. Look, Sean Russell, he'll have that shot at that spot. We'll see Sean Lane is captaining this trial game, so that's obviously a sign of
Hamoli Olakau'atu as well. He'll be there. Oh, sorry, Kelmatu and Lungy.
They love posting the Olakau'atu photo, don't they? Then at hooker, we've got Brandon Hands in at 9. Do we have? Yeah, no Lussick. So that's kind of interesting to me. Look, Brad Arthur has come out and said he's going to give one of these hookers 80 minutes. So maybe they give Brendan Hands some pretty big minutes and just see how he goes. I'm excited to see him because we talked about this at length, so we won't go about it too long. Josh Hodgson had the preseason last year. Brendan Hands has kind of dropped in as a rookie. This year he gets the whole preseason. So we could see a completely different Brendan Hands at hooker this year. Turning to the Raiders, man, there are so many rookies to talk about in this team.
Yeah.
Who do you want first? Do you want Strange? Do you want Stewart? Do you want one of the forwards?
I'll go to Strange first, just because he's in a position that I haven't seen him be put in, which is the 7 role.
Yeah, I was surprised.
I'm very surprised by that. He's a big 7. He's about 193 centimeters tall at nearly 105 kilos or something.
So he's Terry Campese, basically.
Yeah, he's a big 7.
Terry Campese is a beast, bro. What are you talking about? That's fine. Just long. He's a Matt Burton, long kicking game.
Played a lot of 6 though, as well. Maybe they're going for maybe a bit of a Nico Hines type thing as well. He's a pretty big 7, but in my head, he's more of a Jack Whiten type. He's a runner of the ball. He's not a very big kicker of the ball. I think they want to try out some outside backs and just see what works going into the season. I like Savage being into the team because I think he could get one of those winger spots. And Chevy Stewart. A lot of guys are talking about him starting at that fullback spot. So it'd be very interesting to see if he can lock that down in these preseason performances. Definitely preferred over Savage. I don't know what Savage has done to the coach. Maybe he slept with his misso. I'm not too sure, but he seems to be the guy who's on the wing at the moment and not in the fullback position.
Yeah, I have no idea why he's so disregarded at Canberra. There are teams that could take him tomorrow as well. And to be fair, fullback is pretty deep right now, so there aren't that many teams that could use him. But he's a good player. If I was him, I'd be going, all right, is Nick Meaney going to leave the Storm at some point? And if so, how do I get into that backup role? Because that's I think where he needs to go. He's sort of that in that similar mold to Pappenhausen, very quick, very elusive, not quite as powerful as a Pappenhausen, but also not as old. So he can grow into that. Strange. I think the fact that he's playing the halves is really interesting because there's a lot of people talking about KO Weeks having that 6 spot locked in. I think this shows to me that they're looking at both those guys in the halves, and they're probably going to bring Seb Chris in at center. Most likely. That's what I'm thinking from that, because there's a lot of people talk about Strange being at center. Maybe he rotates in. We'll keep an eye on that because he rotates into center. Then maybe they're thinking about that too. But if Chevy Stewart can have a good game, he wins that spot. There's a lot of guys here that we'd pick for fantasy if they win the spot. In the forward pack, it's not as interesting. I think they've got enough forwards. Zach Hosking isn't playing this one.
First couple of rounds as well. First couple of rounds as well is going to be very interesting for maybe one of these forwards to step up and take Corey Horsburgh's spot, because Corey Horsburgh's out till round 4 with that suspension. So at least for the first 3 rounds, they're going to need someone to step up in there.
It's not long enough. I don't think it's long enough. And they've got Hosking coming in, and they've got Whitehead who could move to the middle as well. I just think those minutes are going to get eaten up. But if Hosking wins a spot, he's a must-have for fantasy.
Yeah.
Any other rookies for Canberra? Do you?
No, not particularly ones that I'm desperate to talk about. So.
All right. Well, we go to a team that you are desperate to talk about, the Dragons, who I know you love, and the Bunnies with a different guy. So for the Bunnies, I'll throw it at you because look, Munro, he's now out for about 8 weeks, I believe it is, with an injury. It's the collarbone that he's done there. So that's rough for him. But are there any other rookies here, or is it just Munro that you were keeping an eye on?
It was going to be a whole new right edge, I thought, for the Bunnies. With Munro, I thought he was going to come in and take that winger spot. Got injured, and we found out as well that Campbell Graham is out until round 20. So they're going to have to fill a couple of spots. I think they're looking. Yeah, and we're looking at these guys. You got your Tane Milne, you got your Richie Kenner there, and it's really fun, and we love Richie Kenner.
Now, where's Isaac Thompson, and how quickly can I fall for that trap again? Because last year I thought, that's a big tackle rusting winger on Souths. Man didn't score a try and didn't break a tackle.
He was another trap, another Tommy Talau type trap for you.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm not that interested in these guys for fantasy, to be honest. If we get Tane Milne, he's priced where he is because he is who he is. He's a tough outside back. He hits hard, but he's just not a fantasy producer. I think on a non-fantasy note, for Lockie Ilias, I think the grace period is almost over. And I think he's shown a bit of potential. He's had some good games, but replacing Reynolds is hard. Obviously, I'm not saying he has to be Reynolds, but I think he's sort of got to really just lock in and be consistent this year, because we saw Sam Walker last year get moved in and out and get held accountable a bit for some mixed form. And I thought he was a lot better than Ilias over his career. So I think Ilias might start getting that pressure soon too.
Oh, totally agree. If he doesn't really perform this year, I think the Rabbitohs need to start looking at different options. It needs to become the breakout year for him. And I know we've been saying that for maybe a couple of years. And I think Andrew Johns had a couple when he said that he was looking ripe for Origin picking last year.
Johns said he was even with Hines and Moses.
No, what? He's still on.
So funny.
He's still on whatever he took after the 2001 grand final.
He's a footy genius, mate. He's a footy genius, but that was a bad moment. I'm going to throw another one for fantasy here too. Look, Jai Arrow starts at the number 12 spot. That is a stab into the heart of every Tallis Duncan owner for fantasy, because I look at that and I go, they're probably not thinking about Tallis Duncan as a starting edge if they're going to run Arrow there for a trial.
He was always going to start there, though. I didn't really understand the Tallis Duncan hype, to tell you the truth. Like, he was never going to start. It was always going to be Arrow. Like, I think maybe they move Arrow to the middle, but I just didn't
Arrow's better in the middle, though. Arrow's a great prop. I don't think he's that good on the edge compared to his form in the middle. He's, especially, you think about the Titans. I just feel like he has never recaptured that Titans form he had when he first burst on. He's so dynamic in the middle. But yeah, fair enough. I mean,
maybe lost a bit of origin pedigree too. I just
agree. Kepi comes in. I think Arrow on the edge helps Totola. So Totola's a good guy for fantasy. Any other rookies for you that you want to talk about here?
Not particularly. Both teams are quite dry in terms of rookies to speak of, to tell you the truth.
We'll be quick on the Dragons then, because there's a couple of rookies for the Dragons.
Yeah, there is. It's like Ryan Couchman, Toby Couchman's twin brother as well. Could be one to watch.
Dylan Egan.
Yes.
Dylan Egan, number 17. So there's talk that he could be the starting edge back rower for the Dragons. But there's also talk that your boy Luciano Leilua will go to the team and lead the Cowboys. We'll see what happens.
We put out a nice post about that today, and I think we'll talk about that when we get to the Cowboys. But if he ends up there, you got him, and I think Dan Russell could be potentially going for that spot as well.
He's the guy. He's the must. Yeah.
It's a cluttered. It becomes a bit cluttered for Dylan Egan if they get Luciano to go back there. I think it'd be good for the Cowboys.
He's off the radar. But then this back line, I mean, look, it confirms a lot of things we've heard. So Zach Lomax is a winger now. You got Jack Bird going to center as well. Flano starting at 6. I think you have to have Flano. We've talked about that already. Zach Lomax is such a trap. Don't even consider that. Jacob Little is kind of a value for drafts and that kind of thing, but I'm not that keen. Then we go down the list. If you buy Ben Murdoch-Masila, I will be very angry and kick you out of our fantasy league because you've learned that lesson before. Don't go back to your ex. Just stick with me on this one.
DeBellin's still going to be a gun. Right.
I think Flano could change what they do with their rotations. So I think there's a chance that DeBellin's a bit of risk about him, but also a bit of upside.
Yeah, just the one guy on the bench as well for rookies, Vilami Fafita as well. Could be one to watch depending on whether he gets enough opportunity. Again, another prop that they're kind of throwing into that rotation in the Molo, Laurie, Murdoch-Masila rotation. He could get some minutes, but I don't expect him to start.
They're inconsistent with them. But to be fair, Flano did coach Fafita. So the big Fafita, Andrew. So maybe he'll do something here. Look, opportunities. Speaking of opportunities, the Warriors took theirs last year. The Tigers didn't. And I think we're going to see a bit of the same this year. But the Tigers do have some really interesting rookies to talk about. Let's jump to the Tigers first, because I think this is one of the more interesting teams to look at. So from a fantasy perspective, there are a few guys to keep an eye on. Guys like Aiden Caesar. He comes in. He's probably a little underpriced, but not quite value in the high 700s. I looked down the list. A lot of people asking about Coruscant. I think Coruscant is a massive skip. And I'll tell you why. It's because of Talon De Silva. He's very good. Very good player. I think he steals minutes through the year. Is he a guy you keep an eye on as a rookie, Miles?
Not particularly, to tell you the truth.
You don't rate him?
No, it's not that I don't rate him. It's just I don't think he'll get an opportunity. I actually think they prefer guys like Lachlan Galvin. And somehow Jake Simpkin will find his way into this team. I can guarantee you that. Like, he will be playing half the games this year, Jake Simpkin, and it'll just be to make tackles and do nothing else. Or maybe make tackles and get a head knock. I think that'll be the game plan for him this year. But no, Lachlan Galvin, is the guy you want to watch here in terms of rookies. He's pushing his way into that team. You can see he's basically the 14th guy thought of at this point in time. Can play center, and that's an area where the Tigers could struggle this year, and he could get quite a lot of game time. He's only 19 as well.
Alum comes in, so they're gone all right there. But all right, I'll make you a bet then. How about this? I'll bet you a beer that Talon De Silva gets minutes before Galvin does.
Oh, yeah, all right. All right, I'll take that.
It plays into your favor too, because he's center cover, and they love some center cover on the bench. So
yeah, I know.
Yeah, that could be juicy. I mean, look, any other rookies here that you like for the Tigers that you keep an eye on, or not really?
Well, the one that's missing is Latu Fainu. Like, he's not mentioned in the teams there, and I can't see any reason as to why not. Because he's not on the casualty ward either for God knows what reason. But maybe they're keeping him back. He is a bit young as well.
Samuela, Sione. It's not. Maybe he's changed his name.
Samuela is not a rookie, but he's played about 4 or 5 games. I think it's 5 games, so therefore he's not a rookie anymore.
He was good
this stage.
Yeah.
He's a prop. He's a bit of a smaller prop though, so he could develop into a back row position. So that could be quite dangerous for.
And he played edge last year, so like maybe he's the reason why they were okay losing Bloor. Go to the Warriors then, and look, RTS is at center. A lot of people are sending me teams with RTS in their fantasy side. I don't like it at center after a few years off rugby league. I just think at 600K, it's too much to pay for him.
Yeah, I was going to ask you the price because it'd be very interesting after a couple of years off, like what you come back priced as. So are they taking?
He's priced at full. He's priced at full, man. He's priced like what he was when he left, basically.
No,
so you're tossing up. You're like, is it him, or you're comparing him with like Herbie Farmworth and Joey Manu and these sorts of guys? And like on talent in his prime, he's
never played center.
I think he'll be good at center in real life. I just don't think it's going to translate for fantasy. Harris Tavita versus Metcalf for the 6th spot is really interesting. I look at that and sort of go, Metcalf did a lot last year. Like he was perfect next to Sean Johnson, and you give him another year to develop. I like that a lot. Whereas Harris Tavita, again, I've got nothing against him. He's a very physical half compared to Metcalf. Probably not as creative in terms of, I guess Metcalf's not that creative, but he's super fast. So I still look at that and go, I'd like Metcalf to win that spot, but Harris Tavita, after a year off in Europe, he's ready to go too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that for Metcalf, it's just another year to solidify that position. As you said, CHT comes back after his mission. I don't like the Tuivasa-Scheckter center thing, by the way. I think they should just put him straight back to fullback and move Chance Nickel-Klokstad to center. I know that's a bit harsh on Chance, considering he played so well there last year. But no offense to Chance, it's RTS we're talking about. He's a former Dally M Player of the Year at that position. Yes, he might have some growing pains coming back into the NRL in terms of match fitness, but I don't like it there. The other guy, in terms of rookies for the Warriors, is Zion Mau'u. On the bench. He's a prop, bit of a short prop, but a lot of raps on that young kid as well. So good to see him get an interchange spot there. Keen to see what he can do, and especially with Adam Fanua-Blake leaving at the end of this year, could be one to watch out for the future.
A huge gap to replace. Huge gap. And then, go down the bench. Yeah, nothing that's shouting out at me too much for fantasy here. Look, Jackson Ford, he tries to back up last year's performances. I think in real life, it's exciting to see how he goes because he was very good last year. Isaiah Papali'i, if the Tigers can turn it around, he's about 100K undervalued for fantasy, but I don't think they will this year. I think it's going to be next year where they sort of start to kick on. So I think this year they're a bottom 3 side. Let's roll into this game, which is pretty juicy. So you've got the Broncos who are about to put 60
70
on a team of blokes that were picked up at the pub wearing Cowboys jerseys.
Yeah.
Because there's not
I
a lot
mean,
of regular first grade names in this team, is there?
I'm totally okay with that, to tell you the truth. Like, I
So you don't want
am
to win the
totally
preseason
fine.
challenge.
Yeah, for us to not risk any injury, I'm good with it. There's a couple of guys in there that maybe need to earn spots that we've just chucked in there for a bit of a play around. But yeah, for me, the number 7 for us is going to be extremely good to watch. If he can get some early ball, Thomas Duffy. This kid was wanting to be lured away by Phil Gould. He wanted him so bad to play 7 for them, and you can see right now that the Dogs 7 situation is an absolute mess. That's how highly Phil Gould thinks of this kid. Nearly offered him, I think it was $500,000, and he's 20 years old. So for a
Wow.
3-year
So
deal for $500,000 a season.
he's obviously looking at Townsend thinking that's not going to be too long.
Well, Townsend, I think, re-signed for another year, which I'm not a big fan of, to tell you the truth. I would love us just to either go with Clifford or go with Duffy. I know we've tried the Clifford thing before. We don't mind Clifford here on this channel. In terms of fantasy, do we have any interest in Clifford if one of the two guys were to go down?
I don't even know what he's
Townsend?
priced at. I'm not really keeping an eye on him. He
Kick
was
meters would be
traditionally
good.
about a 40 average. So, yeah, he's a good player. I think he's good as well. He went to the Knights when they were really bad. That's a hard thing to do. Not many players can do that. But, yeah, I think he's interesting. I'm surprised he hasn't found a first grade spot somewhere. But that's life, I guess. Yeah, Thomas Duffy, that'd be interesting. I'd keep it on him for fantasy.
Yep.
Finafuyaki, he becomes somewhat interesting if Luciano Leilua leaves the club, because then all of a sudden you've got Lukey starting with Nanai, right? And they're fantastic. But then Finafuyaki becomes that next guy up, and he's a bit of a bulldozer. So I don't mind him.
I think if we go with Chester off the bench too, instead of Granville, like I just think that Granville's great love for Granville. You know, we were there. He set up a try in that grand final. He was electric that entire year in 2015. But that was 2015. That was 9 years ago now. Not saying that, I just love to get rid of players when they're old. I just don't know if Granville's the right option anymore. I think Tommy Chester, yes, he's fresh off an ACL injury, but it's good to see him back pretty early. I think it's actually ahead of schedule. But I think if he can get that 14 spot as well, it could be interesting for us moving forward. I just think he offers more.
Mate, he's got his work cut out for him in this game because he's up against Reece Walsh, who isn't taking any time off here, apparently. So you got Walsh, Corey Oates, Hoyter, Cobbo, Mariner, Madden, and Reynolds. It's a great back line. Look, for me in fantasy, I'm looking at Dean Mariner and just thinking, I hope he wins a spot in this back line. It is nowhere near guaranteed, but there's a lot of talk that Cobbo goes to center. Mariner was good in their last preseason game last week, and I just look at him and just think, yeah, he's got everything he needs, all the tools in his kit to be super explosive, have a good base, have that best chance of helping them to offset losing Herbie Farmworth in terms of his meter production. So I'll be watching him really closely in this game. Cobbo to center as well, watching that really closely. It's probably not going to be useful enough for fantasy, but you could think about reaching for him in a draft league. There's not a lot of rookies to talk about here, so I'm just going to keep going here, Miles. Look, Billy Walters in that hooker, and he's kept out a few guys. So
well,
Corey
one thing I really don't like is the Tyson Smoothie at 14 thing. He's keeping out Blake Moser as well, and Corey Pakes, who are down in the reserves. So they're the two blokes that I would have maybe assumed could get that 14 role for the Broncos. Bizarre selection for me. I'm not exactly
There's
sure.
a bit of that in this team, man. Like you got Pat Carrigan and Payne Haas playing this trial game, and then you have Ben Takura sitting in at jersey 19 and Fletcher Baker at 16, right? So I'm looking at those guys thinking, I want to see Fletcher Baker in this side. I want to see how he goes with those boys. I want to see Tristan Saylor. He was great in last week's preseason game. How does he not get into a side somewhere? Like that makes no sense to me either.
Just need.
Oh god. Do we have internet connectivity issues? I wonder if it's recording on my side or Miles's. I'm just going to keep talking while we're here. So, we've got, Tristan Saylor. I assume Miles is ranting about him not getting into a first grade team right now. Hey, you're back.
Oh, I thought you cut out.
Maybe I did, but I'm the one recording, so it counts as your cutout. We do everything one cut here, by the way, guys. So I'm not editing that out. If you made it to minute 45, congratulations.
What'd you tell them? What'd you lie to them about?
Actually, if you made it to this, I told them a few things, but if you made it to this point, let me know in the comments, and then send me a team on Instagram, and I'll help you with your fantasy team. But yeah, I was saying before, like Ben Secura, Fletcher Baker, I would love to see them in the first grade side. Jaden Hunt getting a start there is interesting too. Ben Secura, you need to have him. I don't think there's too much to talk about with this Broncos team.
No, it's just way too experienced.
All right, here's the thing. What's the scoreline? Pick me a scoreline for this game.
72-10.
Ooh,
Broncos.
I'm going to say 46-16. I think your boys will put up a fight. I think Payne Haas plays like 12 minutes. Like, there's no way. Like, they're gonna start together and they'll all go off the field, surely. And Ben Secura gets some minutes. Like, there's no way they're giving those boys big minutes. Look, then we got the Sunday game. So Sunday 6:15, last game of the round. So we got the Dolphins and Titans, and there's some good names on these lists. So I mean, look at the Titans side, like Jalen DeGroot. That's a cool name. Jack Garrett. I kind of like that's kind of fun. Kai Foxwell, Vaka Sikahele, Jordan Penquit, Seth Nicotimo. I hope I'm pronouncing these right, but they're just sick names. Like it's a great list of names here.
Yeah, and you just showed everyone how knowledgeable you are in terms of pronouncing names as well. I applaud you. I applaud you for giving it a crack because I wouldn't have wanted to risk the PR.
No, look, I might have got. If I got it wrong, let me know. My name's hard to pronounce too. So Luke Burton actually did bring a tear to the eye. Just thinking I saw Luke Burton the team for the classic Parramatta sides. But no, look, there's tons of rookies in this Titans team. It's not a very first grade heavy team. On the other side of things with the Dolphins, look, Trey Fuller's all right. Jack Bostock, he's fighting for a first grade spot, so I'm keeping an eye on him. I don't think he's worth much for fantasy. Ewan Aitken on the edge back row spot there. That's one thing where I look at that and go, he's a 45 to 50 average in the back row. You can get him at center.
Lemuelu, though?
Lemuelu he's on the extended there. He was rated in a mixed way by Bennett, and they've brought in some real centers this year. So they've got Averillo and they've got Herbie Farmworth. So Aitken basically becomes a back rower for this team.
He's struggled, though, defensively in the back row. I don't know what it is with maybe bigger players running at him. I think he has the speed, but I just see him struggling there. And I think maybe Lemuelu isn't in the team due to repeated head knocks last year were definitely a frustration for you because I know you had him in our draft league. I don't know who really gets that position. Tommy Gilbert going to be viable again this year? I loved him last year.
He's winning all the time trials in preseason, so he's super fit. Missed a lot of last year, but he's interesting. Marshall King, I'm excited to see him as well because he had a breakout last year. And you look at that and go, all right, look, he sort of fell off the boiler a bit down the stretch with injuries. So I sort of look at him and go, I need to see him come into the season fit and hold it up a bit longer. The other guy I can throw to you here as well is do not get Jermaine Asako in your fantasy league. And like the reason here, and look, hey, he was my MVP, winger fullback last year in fantasy. I gave him that award, even though he wasn't the top average, because he was so good. But Herbie Farmworth comes in, and Herbie runs 160 meters a game, and a big part of that is not passing the ball. So Jermaine Asako is not gonna get as much ball
due to Herbie's selfishness.
No, he's just a bit more like no one called Justin Hodges selfish, but similar mold, right? They're very good centers. Yeah, maybe a few people did, but they're good centers, right? So Herbie's more of a bruiser sort of ball runner. Jermaine will need to get some cutout passes from whoever's at fullback. Or maybe Herbie goes to fullback when Hamiso moves to center for some reason halfway through the year, because that usually happens as well. The Dolphins could be anything. I look at this and I go, like, the one thing we know is that Mark Nichols is very good looking. But other than that, anything could happen, right?
Yep. Anything could happen.
Caught you off guard there, eh?
Sorry?
Caught you off guard with that one, eh?
Yeah. It's just the best phrase in the world. Anything can happen. Yeah.
Here's one that could happen.
I need to step back from the, the prophecy of that great phrase. It's just too much to handle.
I've scrolled up too far here.
The man Ray Stone could get a start this year as well. The man, the myth.
I don't think so, but Flags get more minutes. I want to see him in this team. Val Tavare.
Yeah, does he come in?
Fantasy producer. I don't think so. I think he needs another year in Bennett's eyes. And they don't have the gaps in the roster this year that they did last year. So I think he gets a year. Anyone rookie wise that you like for the Finns?
Yeah, he's in the starting side. He's Jack Bostock. Had a couple of really good games last year. Still considered a rookie, didn't play enough. But I just think, with the Dolphins, they have quite a lot of outside backs, a lot of guys who can play center wing. Whether he gets that spot over Tessie New long term, we'll see. He is a big aerial threat. He's a lot taller than Tessie. But I'm waiting to see whether he will lock down that position and whether Tessie will be the odd man out.
Yeah, I think they were pretty unhappy with Tessie last year. He's playing center in this trial, and he played center in last week's game as well. So to me, that says he's not going to be the winger. He's going to be the backup center. Not good news for Val Tavare either. So, yeah. Exciting times, mate. We've got footy back. For me, that Raiders Parramatta game is the one I'm most excited about because Para have some rookies in that one. Para fan, obviously. But the Raiders have a ton of rookies who are really fighting for spots. So that's the game I'm going to be tuning into 100%. Everything else is fair game. Anything could happen, as you say so often. Any games that you're in particular going to be diving into? Probably not.
I'll definitely watch my Cowboys play as well. I think that is the Maori versus Indigenous All Stars game on this week. I'm pretty sure it is as well. So
it's not in this list, but
no, it's not in this list, but it's also on this weekend. So make sure you guys tune into that. May do a little bit of a preview before that game as well. Whether Longy joins me on that or not, feel free.
We'll do that 100%.
Yeah, so
we'll catch you on that one. Peace out, everyone. Enjoy your preseason footy, and we'll see you on the next one. Like, subscribe, and comment.